Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. In this video I will be covering the hidden gem of the hi-fi world, which is the external clock and some few USB boxes. And welcome back. Good, I've discovered two boxes after a long bit of testing with my friend. It's actually my friend that made these discoveries, and this is like a huge thing. This is almost bigger than when we first invented the smartphone. This is going to take the audio as we know it now and propel it into a total new era. Let me get into it. So basically what we have this Gustad U16 box, which is one of the boxes that perform this neat trick. Got the box, you've got the GPS here. Ignore the Apple thing. That's what amateurs do. Use an Apple box to connect it with this. Then we have a different type of box. ISO-Regen box from Uptone Audio, not the USB Regen, but the ISO-Regen. That cleans the USB power, revolts the power. And you basically connect that to your streamer or whatever you have. I had it in a picture here, so just ignore the rest. I wouldn't use the rest of the products. They're probably okay, but I haven't tried them, so I can't comment on that. And I think the one that you want, the ISO-Regen, I was told that this was an ISO-Regen, but I don't think it has this on and off button thing. So look out for that. So what you're looking at in these pictures is the secret to achieving the highest level of audio. But no one is really using them because they don't really understand why they should use them and exactly how. And I'm talking about customers and companies. So now I will reveal what the actual secret is on how you unlock it. But before we get into that, you just have to know this little story about clocks. So clocks are basically a thing that exists as a function in digital equipment, CDs, DACs, digital amplifiers, amplifiers that are Class D, such things, routers, streamers that we use for music. And all of these things have their own specific timing that is regulated by the clock. And that's one of the reasons why good components work in an audio chain, because it affects the stability of the clock. So clock is everything, because you are solving a problem at the very source of the signal. So generally, the more that you pay for gear, the better the sound you will get, simply because it's higher quality components, which stabilizes clock, cleans power and all of that stuff. But what most companies don't realize is that even though they do a good job on making a clock, a lot of companies make a really good solid clock. What they don't realize is that it still shares the same power with the rest of the components, which indirectly affects it quite dramatically. And that's because it's using the same power cable and the same power supply. So this is one of those things that when you look at it in theory, it might not make sense, but once you test this at a very high level that me and my friend have been able to, most people when they test these products, they don't test them in a proper way, but when you do some extreme testing, then you discover the truth, and that is that this thing actually works. Yeah, when you isolate the clock by taking out for the rest of the equipment But when you do it at a high level, which I will show you how to do, you basically get a type of sound that is simulating gear that typically will cost 5 to 10 times more, meaning that it totally breaks the hi-fi, what do you call it, structure as we know it, the hi-fi hierarchy. I showed you in my previous videos how I rank the different pieces of gear in the world, starting with Kenwood, then on musical fidelity and all that, and then I moved up to classes like Yamaha, and then other classes like Pass Labs and Macintosh, and then later on we get up to really good gear like Negra, Spectral, and in the end Audio Note type gear. And this kind of beats that system, meaning that it can take gear that is at the very bottom and almost push it to the top if you apply it to that gear. But even better, if you take this solution and try to somehow incorporate it into really fantastic gear like Negra, Spectral, Audio Note, stuff like that, then you get an even more insane sound, let's just try and get into this. This is very exciting. But it's also there is a reason why people haven't shared this, and that's because it is incredibly difficult to create the conditions that I'm about to go into now. Okay? There is an overall problem with the hi-fi world, and that is that money drives the whole game. And you have to be able to sell a product. It has to be a one-box solution. We live in a very minimalistic age where having a big ugly speaker and 20 different boxes and a lot of cables around, that's not going to appeal to a hell of a lot of folks, especially because of all this new era of Apple and the iPhone and iPads and MacBooks and all that stuff. So people have almost gone back in time, owning less equipment, and they don't want to deal with all this clutter, all of this gear. But I'm telling you guys, if you want to save a hell of a lot of money, this is the guide that you're supposed to be using. You can, of course, skip everything I say here, but just realize if you're not doing what I'm talking about in this video, you will have to probably use 5 to 10 times more money to achieve the same type of sound. So you have the choice. It's up to you where you want to go. So yeah, you have to be kind of stubborn and persistent, and give it all you got and do a lot of experimenting. Now, I will give you a lot of stable data that you will need, so it will make it a hell of a lot more easy for you to get to that really top sound. So just to give you guys an idea of what's waiting just around the corner here. Your sound will be changed in this following way. Once you do all of these steps, you will be removing a hell of a lot of noise and harshness, but that comes together with the sound becoming a lot more solid, really, really solid. And it goes even deeper in the bass, deeper in the overall sound. And at the same time, we're not talking about normal gear and its way of solving a problem. We're talking about reaching a new level of naturality that you never thought would be ever possible with normal gear. Making low budget gear, mid-budget gear sound like high-end gear, high-end reaching Of course, if you applied this to the high-end gear that already exists now, it would take it even higher up, okay? So sound would, especially the sound, it will become a lot less chaotic, a lot more stable. So you have the time to see exactly what's going on. Everything will be separated in a natural way, and there will be so much space between the details without it suppressing any part of the structure, the musical flow, and such. And very important is that sounds will stop being pumped out and becoming irrelevant. Everything will have a meaning, a substance, a color, a flow to it that will be appealing, so that everything becomes important. I can't stress how much that really means for me to me and my friend to find out finally a modern way of using a bit of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort so you can break the system and actually, feel as if you own a high piece of Negra spectral audio note piece of gear. It's amazing that you can now do this with just regular equipment like Yamaha, Pioneer, I don't know, Vincent, Musical Fidelity, regular gear, Plinius, those are usually brands that I definitely don't want to recommend at all. But if you go all the way with this guide that I've created here, you're entering a type of sound that is almost non-existent on this planet. We're going so deeply into the sound that it will probably give you an impression of this sound not really belonging in year 2020, but more like 2150 or something like that, like more than 100 years into the future. So yeah, of course you'll be getting a lot more detail and all that. So let's get into the specifics of it. As I showed you earlier, there's the Gustad box and the accompanying GPS function that you have coupled to it, okay? And then you have the coax cable that comes with it. And this whole thing, this is an external clock. It basically bypasses the clock on, for example, your streamer, your music streamer, It's like I said before, it simulates that you have gear that is so much more expensive, gear that you normally would not be able to buy. And let me get into the specifics. So you're going to need a Gustad U16 box and something like an Elfinity Isoregen or an Uptone Audio Isoregen. Those Isoregen boxes are USB boxes. They basically regenerate the USB power on your streamer, making it a lot more solid. Built-in USB on any regular device, any regular streamer that you buy finished or that you make yourself, is a very, very, very unstable signal in terms of sound. Not in terms of mechanics and being able to use a computer, but in terms of sound, we can hear that this is a really bad sound. And this box is in particular Uptone Audio Isoregen. It's like cheating, As soon as you connect the thing like this on your streamer, it's a bit like owning an Aurelix or an Aurenda streamer that's worth, I don't know, $10,000-$20,000 or something like that. It just revolts that USB signal and makes it just seem like something that's 10 times better. And the same thing goes with this Gustad box. So we need the Gustad box and we need the Uptone Audio Isoregen. And the Elfinity is like an extra option that I know exists, that my friend also has. But he's told me that the Affinity is like a step below this ISO again. So USB box and external clock box. Good. That's step one. After you've used, I don't know how much that costs. It costs like, I don't know, $1,000 on that. After this, you connect it to your streamer, typically, the Gustard box. And importantly is that with this streamer box, Gustard box, okay, you also have a coax cable that has a GPS lock. So you have to have a coax cable from that Gustard U16 box going probably, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 feet, I don't know. So your signal, your cable can point at a GPS outside. This will lock the sound. As soon as that is locked, as soon as you can see that it says 9.99999 blah 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 hertz, then you know the signal is locked. And then from then on you will be able to hear quite a bit of difference. But you still have to follow the entire guide in order to get the full benefits, okay? You could possibly also connect these boxes, the Uptone Audio, the Gustard box, to like a DAC or CD or digital amp or router or something like that. Just want to let you guys know, there are some few companies out there making routers that have an improved clock on the router. Trust me, the router in itself is a huge liability in regards to your streaming sound. Do not underestimate your router, how much it is screwing up your sound. So in the future, be aware that there might be products out there with an improved clock or power supply clock or whatever for the router. Try and look into that. Try and deal with that if it's possible. Yeah. And very important, it's crucial that you do not use the standard LPSU that comes with the Gustard box. LPSU is linear power supply. These standard boxes cost very little to make, and with most products in the audio world, standard PSU, standard LPSU boxes, they usually are really bad and don't come anywhere near of harvesting all the potential that boxes like this, you know, the Gustard U16 box or the Uptone Audio ISO again box, they don't come anywhere near milking all that potential out of it. So what you will typically need is something in the $300 to $3,000 range per LPSU to make that sound stable. I do not know who sells these types of boxes. You'll have to figure that out. Get someone probably to make that as a custom box, or you can find some different types of boxes on the market that you can just experiment. You have to figure that out, my friend. That's one of the reasons why my friend used so many years on finding out all of these different steps. You know, it's not a finished product solution, so you have to kind of, you know, collect the pieces and gather them yourself. So the next step, again, it's crucial that you have a very good power cable with good plugs on the power cable powering that LPSU up, which is the LPSU that is powering up the Uptone Audio box and the Gustard box. And try, like I've told you guys before in my previous videos, try and use a shorter type of cable, a 50 to 100 centimeter power cable. This will typically help a lot with improving the sound. It will give you a lot more of that coupling effect. If you go for a longer cable, you will get a more smooth, laid back and not so active sound. That is why I recommend 50 to 100 centimeter power cables. And what my friend did, he just took something like a summer cable Quadra Blue model, and then he used some Wattgate silver plugs or some Oyade 079 or 029 or 037 plugs. Those are very different plugs that have very different sounds. So in the end, it could be that you have to save this step for the end, because you want like all the boxes combined, putting it all together, setting it all up, and then probably in the end you want to do all this cable stuff. And yeah, once you've done all this cable stuff, make sure that you have a double pull on the minus pole, because double pull on the minus pole gives you more stability usually. And the same with Uptone audio. Do the same thing with this box, same high quality power cable and plugs. And also know that you have to have a good separate LPSU, again with good power cable for your streamer. And you need to know so if it's a streamer that you have, you need a really good card to send the signal off, And there I suggest a JCAT USB card. It probably also costs like $1,000 or something like that, or $500. Again, you can't not do this and you can't do this and not have a JCAT USB PCI card. I don't know what it's called, Femto something or whatever. You have to figure that out. And what you also need to do is make sure that you have a good separate LPSU for that streamer powering up that JCAT. If you just have the JCAT sucking power from the streamer, you will get sound, but it won't be nearly as powerful and important and nearly as good as amount of control. So again, that's what it takes to reach those types of levels. And very important, you have to experiment to find out if this is correct, but you will most likely have to have your entire audio system powered up via a power bar or a power cleaner that is not connected to all of these boxes, meaning that the streamer in itself with this good setup actually sends back a lot of noise back to the system. So make sure that everything that powers up your amp, your CD, your DAC, everything like that, even your LP setup, have that on one power bar. And all of this stuff, which is basically considered PC type of stuff, this must not go on the same power bar. There won't be any problems in regards to safety or anything like that. It's just in terms of audio quality, it's going to send back a lot of noise having PC equipment on audio equipment power bars. So I mean, if you're going into this direction, you have to try and at least do that. That's going to save you a hell of a lot of trouble. So to start off with, just get something like a regular power bar for $1 to $10. And then later on, you start with something like a PS Audio power bar, or even better, a Gigawatt power bar, maybe PF2 Mark II, something like that. And then in the end, you can probably get something like an Isolate Mini Sub-Access. That is a really good power bar cleaner. But again, those are probably one of the later steps for you when you're done doing all of this and you really want to milk that last piece of good sound. And try to remember not to use any cheap standard battery packs. Don't take shortcuts. Don't buy cheap knockoff eBay cables or plugs or whatever. And when you usually use these battery packs, they usually lack a lot of dynamics and attack and life, and it can seem a bit digital and not really good in some kind of a way. Um, it's only when you got some really special batteries that you almost get custom made, that you can use that, for example, to power up your router or your streamer or something like that. Don't try and use normal batteries. So basically, just skip this step, but just realize that don't take shortcuts. Okay, don't use batteries. And if you have something like a small thing, like an iPhone charger that's just connected to your power bar, that's handling all of this sound equipment, it can be heard. It all leaves some kind of sound signature. So just realize that. And yeah, your router is also a huge part of the noise going on in your system. So you kind of want to deal with that as well as you can with what's available to you of resources. So I'll always try to look into that. Perhaps a bit later, because you want to just kind of get this up and running and functioning just to start with. But yeah, in the end, you'll be able to hear when stuff like Wi-Fi is activated, or when you're using a LAN cable instead. That there will be huge sound differences in the end when all of this is set up. So just to conclude, in the end, you'll realize that the more and more you proceed upgrading your sound, going in this direction, the more that it will react, and it will tell you the truth, and it won't be this hidden reality where everything's like, pretend nice. I always compare it to Macintosh. I'm sorry if anybody from Macintosh is looking at this, but it kind of gives you that Macintosh effect, where everything's kind of conservative, laid back, and doesn't really care. It goes away from that when you reach these levels. Even Macintosh, Past Labs, Mark Levinson, brands I usually don't recommend, even brands like that are going to sound awesome once you do these tweaks. If you thought, for a second, if you thought that you've heard Macintosh in your life, or Past Labs, or Mark Levinson, or any regular transistor brand, maybe below that, way below that, don't for a second believe that you've heard anything close to what's optimal, or what that piece of gear can actually perform at its highest level. This will totally blow you away into another world once you do all of these steps. It will make it, the speakers will totally disappear, and you'll just disappear into this deep world. And suddenly you're listening to music for not 30 minutes or 20 minutes, but hours, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day. Because you just discover a completely different sound that even you, I give you that analogy, that even you, just imagine, you might be looking in audio stores going, wow, I'd like to own that someday, that's so much better than my own sound. But just think about this, you could, with your own equipment that you own right here now, possibly get into that same sound that they have in the stores, or, like my friend did, create something that's even better. And I just want to mention that what he had, his equipment, that was Yamaha equipment with a middle range monitor audio speaker. That stuff shouldn't able to get anywhere near a Macintosh setup, which is on paper a lot better. If I took a standard Macintosh setup and I compared it to a standard Yamaha and monitor audio setup, the Macintosh would win every single time. No competition at all. I'm telling you that this guy here, who has done all of these steps, he has created a sound that is 10 times better than the Macintosh sound. Okay, maybe not 10 times, but a hell of a lot better. This Yamaha type monitor audio sound is not just only reaching Macintosh levels, it actually sounds better than a lot of the audio note stuff that I've listened to. Just imagine if you took the audio note gear and you had a streamer on it and you did these things that I'm suggesting in this video. Just imagine the level of sound. It would be so good that you would almost feel like you're in a trance, and you can't really escape your own home or go to work or anything. I don't know if that sounds like a nightmare or an ideal scene of what you want to experience, but I've heard this sound before, okay? And it's I usually only hear that type of sound when I'm listening to the best spectral or Nagra equipment or the very best of audio noting. This is just ridiculous, the amount of detail that you are going to be able to listen to, and you'll discover just this hidden world of magical sound where everything basically sounds fantastic. Let me just get into what I was about to read here on the screen. Sorry for getting a bit off track there. And you also realized in the end that stuff like bad quality cables, plugs, PSU cause a great deal of disconnect in many ways. And you'll be able to hear that cheap components sound in this way. They're either pumping sound out in a chaotic way or they're suppressing it, giving you a bias in sound. Okay, either making it slow, fast, dark, muddy, clear, in all kinds of ways. And what you'll discover is that your system will react. Everything that you listen to will just become relevant. It's almost, I feel like I'm almost describing another planet where I've been to, where I've talked to this other race, and I'm coming back to planet Earth to tell you about it. It feels to me a bit like that. You almost have to experience it to believe it. I've experienced something similar when I listen to like the best LP equipment in the world and the best master tapes recording on these master wheel recording kind of thingies, and the most expensive audio note, Nagra, and spectral gear. I've had some experiences that were almost as good as that. But yeah, you'll simply be getting into a reactive type of sound that will now make you able to listen to several different kinds of power cables. So let's say that you have like 5 or 6 different power cables in your system that you've created yourself, okay? You can now hear the difference, so that you, for example, take the copper cable and put it over your CD player or your amplifier or switch some around. You'll be able to hear the difference in sound. So if you like put a cable, like the copper power cable on your amp, you might hear that it's a bit heavier in the bass. If I put it on the CD, it's like, yeah, it's a lot more clear, but then I don't get this detail, Those are things that will become a reality, okay? This is a totally new type of world that most people will never ever be able to listen to unless they have some really expensive equipment generally. So it's just to let you guys know that this world really does exist, and just to give you a small piece of information that my friend told me about a week ago is that he told me, oh my God, you're right. I used to think that copper and silver cables had to be mixed in my system in order for it to have the best compromise of both worlds, best clarity, best bass, that warmness and clarity thing. But now he's able to see that having the same silver cable all over the same units at the higher quality gives a much better and released type of sound that isn't artificially safe. So I guess that it is a kind of a compliment to me and what I've been on, but it also kind of tells you how far he's moved his system from, I wouldn't say the bottom end, but you just reach a certain level in the hi-fi world where things start reacting more, and you don't have to settle and go with this slightly compensating, laid back type of sound that plays it safe, but you're able to take it up to like a much higher level where you're challenging your system. And that's just what I'm saying with all this. This will challenge your system in a good way, and your system will accept that challenge, and you will just go deep into the sound, and almost everything will sound fantastically great. Of course, depending on the quality of recording, But you have to notice this requires money, time, patience. It isn't just like here you go, 1-2 boxes connected, and there's like boom, 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 and it's much better. You might be able to just buy the boxes and connect the whole stuff in the standard way with standard crap $1 power cables and standard LPSUs and all that. And it might get 2 times better the sound, okay? But I just personally think that if you're going to invest that amount of money, you might as well, up the ante, get some proper LPSUs, proper power cables, separate those units, put them on some different power bars, have different power, circuit breakers, put different power groups for each power bar, because then everything will kind of be separated in a natural way. And this is one of the few times in hi-fi where I actually recommend extending the signal in order to create a better sound. So I'm usually not a guy that would go in this type of direction. This is a modern type of thing, but I feel that there's kind of these few boxes on the market. No one's really using them. No one's understanding how they work and why they really work. So what is it that I've written here? There's also some similar boxes like Audi Agidi. They also make like a Gustad U16 box. I've heard this from my friend that read on several forums, heard from some guys that's actually supposed to be better, the one that has the GPS function there. It of course costs about double as much as the Gustad U16. I haven't tried it. My friend hasn't tried it yet. So when we do try it, I'll try and leave a comment for you guys to read, or in the description of the video. So it's just to let you guys know that the Gustad U16 box isn't necessarily the only box. There might be some other boxes, but Gustad U16 is like the only box that I know of that does this really well. And that's the only one I kind of recommend trying. And I feel that streamers, as they are on the market as of 2020 here, are very much behind in terms of what is, the optimal sound. If you compare that to top CD or top vinyl at the very top, it doesn't get even close. And I guess that when manufacturers will finally discover what I've been telling you guys in this video, when they will see this, right now, what I'm saying in this video, this will make me seem like Steve Jobs, probably around year 2000, before he, got recognition for, being involved in the whole iPhone thing and inventing that and taking Apple into a new age. People will probably think of me a bit like like that, a bit of a nutbag, visioning something that doesn't seem logical to a lot of people. I know a lot of people also said that about Einstein, back in the early days of his career. But I'll tell you guys, this is the true secret to how you don't have to use a hell of a lot of money to attain a huge value for your sound. So I'm guessing the way that the market is looking now, the way that manufacturers are reacting to everything here, I'm guessing it will be probably only around 2050 before streamers are finally beating CDs and DACs, top CDs and DACs. So we still have a long way to go. And if just if companies could just incorporate this thing into their CDs, the DACs, the digital amplifiers, the streamers, music would just completely change. Just imagine being in your car and then having this type of technology, it would completely change things. Also note that doing this on a streamer, this is something that I noticed, a very interesting thing, makes your DAC have to work a lot less on the signal, meaning that you do not have to use nearly as much money on the DAC to move your sound up to those upper levels. My friend did this on his built-in DAC on his Yamaha thing. He just connected the Gustav box and the Uptone audio box there, and that DAC, if you listen to that DAC without all of this stuff, you just think, oh my god, I just want to hang myself. This is a really, really bad sound. Just sounded like like any regular DAC, which probably only cost like $1,000 or less than that. Just grey, boring, nothing about it really. And with this tweet, it made it sound like a $10,000 DAC. The reason why I'm saying $10,000 DAC is because we listened to an Audio DAC 2 upper model, and that's about $10,000 in my country, and it made that difference just by using these very inventive ways of tweaking his sound. He actually attained that same sound effect by having an Audio DAC. So his Yamaha built-in DAC on his receiver got elevated up to one of the best DACs in the world. Probably like, I don't know, that's probably like a top 10, top 20 DAC in the world, just by doing these steps that I've shown you, and it took his receiver sound, which is like a $10,000 receiver, and turned it into something that sounds like a normal $100,000 amplifier sound, like it was, I don't know, D'Agostino Griffin amplifier, something like that. That's some pretty serious gear, I mean, that's a huge difference. And this is the true secret of the audio world. And it will probably, I don't know, maybe it will never reach the industry because it's so complex and hard to integrate. There's a reason why this thing hasn't been released yet, because there are probably only like a handful of people who have heard, like the potential of what this technology has to offer, but actually applying it is a bit of a puzzle. But now I've actually given you the pieces of the puzzle, and I've shown you the picture of how this will look. So all you have to do is just grab those pieces and put it together. And if you're a manufacturer, a hi-fi store, a customer watching this, I suggest you do this on all the products where it's possible. This will create a new era of hi-fi. This will make everybody want to have a piece of hi-fi equipment. There is so much gear out there that is only going at around 10, 15, 20% of its potential. If you did all of this stuff that I'm suggesting, we would move that potential from around the 10 to 20s, more like, I don't know, 60, 70%. I mean, that's a huge thing. Of course, it also depends on many other variables, but just being able to just imagine that, you might have a $1,000 amplifier. Wouldn't it be a shame if you had to use money on a $10,000 amplifier, and you would still, when you own that piece of gear, if you use it like most people would use their piece of gear, they would only harvest around 10 to 20%. And the really good setups, the really top notch setups at the hi-fi shows, I don't think that they exceed 40% of their true optimal potential of what they can give of a really good sound. So this is the secret. This is it. This is where finally being broke pays off, and following this long guide of me explaining how to get that really good sound, that will take you onto a whole other level. I don't think I will ever in my lifetime see such a huge difference. This is like the biggest difference ever that I've experienced in hi-fi, and yeah, I just hope that normal people with regular piece of equipment get to have this technology. It suddenly a lot of gear on the market will just become relevant. You can just start taking regular gear. Like, yeah, I want a Vincent amplifier. I want a Krell Passlabs, I don't know, whatever brand, lower, maybe even cheaper brand than that. And suddenly you'll just get the most colorful, beautiful, interesting sound. So intelligent, so layered. Your mind is just so blown away. It just can't figure out how it works and predict it. It just makes everything sound basically good. It of course has its limits, because everything has a certain type of build quality. So but this is going to take everything up to a level of efficiency, so that you in the end will benefit from it. So yeah, these boxes exist on the market. No one has really found out how they work. Now you finally know how they work, so it's just about getting a hold of these boxes or some other boxes like them, and figuring it out. I just want to go back to this point here that my friend told me. This is apparently the iso-regen USB version of the Uptone audio. He told me, I don't know how this works, but the USB version is not as good as the pure iso-regen box from Uptone audio. So just know that there's something that's different. It's not nearly as good. That's what he told me. Hopefully, in about half a year to a year's time, I will probably own this piece of gear here, and then I can tell you a bit more on how it reacts on top gear that I've got. Because I'm kind of jealous. I've got the better equipment compared to my other friend who has this Yamaha monitor audio thing, and his sound is still a lot better than mine in many aspects. Not all, but many aspects. And when I get this on my system, my God, will it? Then I'll probably have something like an Audio Note level 5 system sound. That's pretty cool. So kind of looking forward to that. So yeah, that's all for today from Real Hi-Fi Help, and yeah, kind of a bombshell video, but yeah, I hope that helps you guys. Have a nice day. Bye.